So, what's trending? Bridging your Catholic faith with your everyday life. You're listening to Trending with Timmery on Relevant Radio.
This is a show you do not want to miss. Call up your friends, share the podcast later if you have to, because we're going to be going deep in the topic of in vitro fertilization. That's IVF. Do you know someone who's struggled with infertility or maybe struggled with being patient during their fertility journey? Well, we'll be talking about that today. My guest a little later on will be Dr. Susan Caldwell, who is a medical doctor who herself conceived multiple children via in vitro fertilization, but she would never recommend it to anyone. And she's going to tell us why, but also an incredible story for her as well. She's now a NaPro doctor. Now, you hear me talk a lot about NaPro doctors here on Trending. It's because they're incredible. They're helping touch on underlying health causes that are essentially leading women to really battle their fertility rather than heal their fertility. And so she helps women who need healing and need to work toward being able to conceive that miracle baby. And so we'll be sharing her story a little later on here on the show. But guess what? Tomorrow is the feast day of a modern day saint. She only died a little more than 20 years ago in 1997 on September 5th, and tomorrow, September 5th, is her feast day. That's St. Teresa of Calcutta. And I have to tell you, I balk each time I speak to a group of young people and they don't know who St. Mother Teresa of Calcutta is. And so my hope in celebrating her feast day is that this year you will tell the story of this incredible saint. A simple nun who was so tiny, yet made such an incredible impact on the world. And I have to tell you, I'll be sharing with you in just a little bit about a letter my own mom received from St. Mother Teresa when she opened up a crisis pregnancy center here in Southern California. And I think there's much that could be said about St. Mother Teresa's work and the work we have to do here in the United States. But talk about a pop take for a second here. So when I was thinking about discussing St. Mother Teresa, I thought, okay, she's a modern saint. We could actually hear her voice and watch her. And so I was going through videos of some of the things she said in her incredible speeches, and I want to bring them to you. But here's what's neat. I pulled up in my first video, it's President Ronald Reagan presenting the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Mother Teresa in 1985. Well, just a few minutes ago, an email came in about a dear friend of Relevant Radio. That is a football coach, Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz today is actually receiving the announcement that President Donald Trump is actually giving a speech from the White House today announcing that football coach Lou Holtz is receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That same exact medal that we're talking about today. In fact, I want to go ahead and play some of the words of Ronald Reagan in introducing why he's giving this medal back in 1985 to St. Mother Teresa. Listen to this.
However, it simply occurred to us when we wanted to honor her that the goodness in some hearts transcends all borders and all narrow nationalistic considerations. Some people, some very few people, are in the truest sense citizens of the world. Mother Teresa is. And we love her so much we asked her to accept our tribute, and she graciously accepted.
This is really neat to hear the words of President Ronald Reagan back in 1985 presenting this Medal of Freedom to St. Mother Teresa, giving the medal to not an American citizen, but someone who transcends American ideologies. You know, the idea of the land of the free, so that freedom is the purpose for doing good. When did we lose that understanding? That freedom is for something, not to do nothing, not to be detached from everything in the wrong way, but to be detached from the wrong things and directed toward the good things. Now, there's a joke that Ronald Reagan makes when he's about to pass off the award to St. Mother Teresa and give her the microphone, and it's about what she's going to do with this medal. Listen to this.
May I say that this is the first time I've given the Medal of Freedom with the intuition that the recipient might take it home, melt it down, and turn it into something that can be sold to help the poor.
If you know nothing about St. Mother Teresa, she's well known for people giving her incredible gifts. I mean, expensive cars, you name it, and she turns around and sells it. One thing after another, she would sell and give away so that she had more financial resources to help the poor, to build the missionaries of charity that she founded, and to do the incredible work of the St. Mother Teresa nuns that we know and love. I have to tell you, to this day, anytime I'm at a retreat house or in Rome or somewhere where there are Mother Teresa nuns, the Sisters of Calcutta, who are spotted, I'm nearly shrieking because I think it's Mother Teresa. You can't help but think that when you see those garments. It just brings so much joy to my heart. But I want to play a clip here and talk about what Mother Teresa had to say about families, because she spoke of what she hopes not just for President Ronald Reagan, but for Americans overall when she first receives her medal. Listen to this.
It's my prayer for you that you may grow in holiness through this tender love for the poorest of the poor. This love begins at home, in your own family, and it begins by praying together. For prayer gives a clean heart, and a clean heart can see God. And if you see God in each other, you will have love, peace, joy together. And works of love are works of peace, and love begins at home.
Love begins at home. Isn't that the challenge that each and every single one of us struggles with? To truly overcome our own obstacles, our difficulties, our desire to veg out at the end of the day, to have that me time, but to truly be present to those around us. St. Mother Teresa talks about love beginning at home, but before that, notice what she said. She said, a clean heart comes from prayer. In another one of her speeches that I was going through earlier today, she kept talking about how we need purity for the sake of purity and chastity for the sake of chastity. And this sense of, the whole person has been purified by the Lord. This occurs in prayer. I don't know how we survive in our modern culture apart from prayer. And that's going to bring me in just a moment to the letter my mother received from St. Mother Teresa. But before I talk about that, I want to play one more clip. And that's from when St. Mother Teresa received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984. And she tells a story about feeding a hungry little girl.
I personally am most unworthy. But I brought a girl child from the street. And I could see in the face of the child that the child was hungry. God knows how many days they had not eaten. So I gave her a piece of bread. And the little one started eating the bread crumb by crumb. And I said to the child, eat the bread. Eat the bread. And she looked at me and said, I'm afraid to eat the bread because I'm afraid when it is finished, I will be hungry again. This is a reality.
I'm afraid that if I eat the bread, I'm afraid that I will be hungry again. St. Mother Teresa taught us to have a love for the poor, to feed the poor. Now, in the letter that she wrote to my mom, essentially what ended up happening is my mom ended up participating in founding and kicking off a crisis pregnancy home, maternity home, for women who found themselves considering abortion, needing resources so that they could bring that baby to term and get back up on their own 2 feet. It was called Veronica's Home, founded here in Southern California. Now, somehow Mother Teresa, I think my mom may have written to her, I don't remember all the details, but Mother Teresa ended up writing to my mother about the founding of this home. And she talked about how in the West, there isn't this crisis of physical poverty. there's a crisis of what she referred to as spiritual poverty. The spiritual poverty of the West. And when I heard this story about this little girl who was terrified to eat the bread because she was afraid of being hungry again, I thought of the truth of each and every single person today who is starving for the truth of God, who maybe is even scared to walk into a Catholic church because they're afraid of what they will see, what they will be convicted of. They are afraid of the honesty they will have to come to terms with regard to themselves and their choices, and the greater and higher calling that each person is called to. You see, in the West, we are facing a crisis of spiritual poverty, as St. Mother Teresa wrote about. And as a little girl, I keenly understood this because my mom would often bring it up, especially as I became involved in pro-life work. And I came to understand that our understanding of spiritual poverty needed to be at the heart of what we did. I know for me it became the heartbeat that drove much of my pro-life mission. And I often think of the words that St. Mother Teresa said about spiritual poverty. And so I challenge you, who are the people in your life who are spiritually poor? See, not all of us can necessarily, even though we should, make the time to go to a food kitchen, make a mission trip or across the world to help care for the impoverished. But we have friends and family, our loved ones, who are starving inside for the love and truth of our Lord Jesus Christ. And at the conclusion of St. Mother Teresa's speech upon receiving the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984, she's commonly misquoted for a quote where people say she said, "Go home and love your families." But in fact, it was actually a charge at the end of the speech. She would talk about how your house should be a house of prayer. She's referring to families. It should be a place of truth, a place where Christ's love is present for the poor. And she talks about the necessity of love that should be present at home, and then that should go out to your neighbor in your own community, and from there go out to the world. And she ends by saying, may God give us the courage to protect the unborn child. Will we take her charge seriously within the family? Will we love the spiritually poor within our own homes and our communities? Rather than jumping so quickly to say, well, I can't make a mission trip across the world. I can't be that Mother Teresa. You can follow in her way and remember the words she spoke about the spiritual poor here in the West. You're listening to Trending with Timmery. It's great to be with you. Boy, do we have a deep conversation ahead of us about in vitro fertilization. We see increasing challenges for many people who are trying to conceive having children at their timing and on their terms, sometimes due to years of contraceptive use, various health issues. Conceiving a child isn't as easy as it necessarily used to be. We're seeing an increase in infertility for both men and women, but we're also seeing an increase in impatience when someone suddenly decides they want to have a child. My guest today is Dr. Susan Caldwell. She's a medical doctor now working as a NaPro doctor who helps women treat underlying health causes impacting fertility and other women's health issues. But she also, years before this, conceived multiple children via in vitro fertilization, yet she would never recommend it to anyone. Joining me now is Dr. Susan Caldwell to share her story. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Timmery. So glad to be here.
Dr. Caldwell, you started as a very ambitious young woman. Early on in high school, you ended up, start at the beginning of your journey with severe cramping and heavy periods that led you to start a journey of taking contraception. Can you share with us from there kind of how that took you into your career goals and education goals?
Yes. So I just remember from being, a young girl, I just knew that I wanted to be a mom. Really first. And then as I realized my giftedness, my intellectual giftedness, and then I had, just goals, to just do something with my life that was meaningful, I kind of started to aim high and realized that although I was married at 22 and on the way to medical school, that wasn't necessarily something that I could kind of pursue at the same time as medicine and mom, were not necessarily something I didn't think that I could pursue together. And I had been poorly catechized in my faith, and the world just tells you that you can have what you want. And I believed it. I went for it. And in order, so at the moment, the bigger thing that I wanted was a successful career and all that goes with that. And so, I'd been on the pill since about 16 because of cramps, and my mom had endometriosis. So I kind of knew that there might be something going on there, but, the doctor said, take the pill. And also used it for contraception, early in our marriage. And, I believed that fertility was something that you just turn off when you don't want it, and you turn it on when you want it, by taking these things to manipulate the cycles. I look back and I can't believe it, but that's what most really people think about it. So I remember on our when someone taught us about NFP early on in the marriage prep process, and I thought, well, that's so sweet. That's such a sweet thing. But I am smart and I have big goals. I mean, I just cringe when I think about, but I share that because I think a lot of people think NFP is for people who are trying to have a baby. And right. It's not for people who, there's nothing wrong with kind of waiting to have children until, that's not what was wrong. But anyway, it was just totally, I had these misconceptions of what, it was, anyway, I just laugh, because I felt like, my fertility is in my control, and I wanted to be smart, and smart girls take the pill.
Right.
So, yeah. And then that led, go ahead.
Right. So this kind of continues to go on while you're married. You're able to kind of work toward your various goals, but then you decide, okay, it's time to have a child. Yes. What happened? And by the way, if anyone's just joining us, that's Dr. Susan Caldwell. She's a NaPro doctor who also has multiple children who she conceived prior to this via in vitro fertilization, but she doesn't recommend it for everyone, and she's telling us now why. So tell us what happened when you decided, okay, it's my time. I want to have a baby. Yes. I'm done controlling not having a baby.
Yes. So what's so funny is I stopped the pill, and then I went to the Catholic bookstore and bought a sweet little NFP guide, right? Because then I thought, oh, well, this is what you do when you want to have a baby. So I started charting my fertility markers, and nothing made sense. It didn't make sense. So months went by. It wasn't making sense. I had a friend who worked at a fertility clinic, a traditional fertility clinic, and she said, well, go see these. If you want a baby, that's what they do. So go there. And so I did. And
wow, go get a baby. It's easy.
Yes. Yeah. Like, this is what you want. Go get it. So the doctor was just such a kind person. And I really, I believed that he wanted the best for me. Did some evaluation, even found that I had endometriosis by surgery, and treated that not as thoroughly as a NaPro doctor would, but we could, talk about that later. But my symptoms came back right away, so it didn't treat it, his surgery, and then quickly started the process. There's kind of an assembly line type of process. Everybody kind of, you get offered intrauterine insemination first. And with usually drugs to kind of stimulate ovulation. And we tried that, and that
clarify what the difference is between intrauterine insemination and IVF? I can never say that first one.
Yes. So with intrauterine insemination, the woman is followed, usually given drugs to help her ovulate, like maybe a lot of different eggs, like super ovulate, and then the man's sperm is taken from him. Well, he masturbates in order to give the sperm, right? So then they wash the sperm, they prepare the sperm, and then the woman comes in at a particular time in her cycle when they determine that she's ovulated or is ovulating, and they insert a little catheter into her uterus that would contain the semen, and then that would, ideally result in conception and pregnancy. So in vitro fertilization is quite a bit different. The same thing happens on the man's side, But in the woman's side, the eggs are retrieved through a procedure where needles are put in under ultrasound guidance, and the eggs are removed from the ovaries in that procedure. And then those eggs are kind of put in some sort of a laboratory container with the sperm. And the eggs and sperm are allowed to come together, and that's one way it's done. In another way, it's there's extra help. But in
right.
our way, it was just done that way. And then we had multiple, I don't know if maybe you're not going to ask that yet, but yeah.
Well, we can talk real quick. Okay. So you did an intrauterine insemination, which has a very low success rate.
Yes.
The statistics aren't really clear. Different places claim different things. But we know it's low, somewhere around 10% often. But if you try for more and more months and multiple cycles, you do see an increase in success, obviously. But the impact on the woman's body is horrible. Can you share with us a little bit about that and take us into how that impacted your IVF journey?
So the drugs that they give cause your ovaries to kind of make many, many eggs, right? So normally a woman would just ovulate one egg a month. And in these cycles, the drugs cause you to ovulate, 10, 20 or more eggs. So we went through the process of in vitro fertilization, and we had more than 20. I don't remember exactly how many, but more than 20 embryos were conceived. So, but in that process of doing that, I had a kind of a reaction, if you will, to the medication. It's called ovarian hyperstimulation, and it's miserable. Because each time an egg an egg comes to its goal, right inside this little follicle, there's a fluid-filled cyst that the egg grows in. And so I had 20 to 30 these huge fluid-filled cysts on my ovaries. Well, every one of those cysts had to rupture in order to get the eggs out. So all of this fluid was pouring into my abdomen. So I ended up very sick. My electrolytes were off. I was dizzy. I don't know that I would have lived if I hadn't gone to the hospital for IV fluids and a lot of, resuscitation, because I was dehydrated, and it was terrible. I really thought I was going to die. I felt very, very helpless, and sick. And I was very upset that I had done this. And I was told, of course, that, the chances of this happening is very low, but it happened, and I was very, very sick. And then I had a triplet pregnancy, and it was a very high risk pregnancy. I was on bed rest the entire time. It was just miserable. It was scary, right? So for women who have been through infertility, there's so much focused, like all of your happiness is focused on having a baby. Like, I'm only going to be happy if I have this baby, right? And then you get pregnant, and then the fear sets in. Oh my gosh, I'm finally pregnant, and then every day, what if I lose the, you just, everything is hanging on the pregnancy. And then I was told that, the pregnancy, the whole time, it was like touch and go because of the different factors in my uterus trying to handle triplets. And then one was at 9 weeks, we lost one because of a subchorionic hemorrhage, which is just a common thing that happens. But anyway, and then I was on bed rest the entire time. I missed a year of my residency training. So it was for so many reasons, it was a horrific experience.
Right. A challenging pregnancy, which a lot of people don't talk about, the risk of premature birth, of multiple births, of the fact that you don't just get one baby, you get multiples, and often people end up choosing abortion in the process of IVF because they don't want multiples. But also, the impact of ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, which you experienced. We'll be back because I want to hear a little bit about how this also impacted your marriage as you went through the process of IVF. We'll be right back here on Trending with Timmery.
Catholic professionals find purpose and take your career to the next level by experiencing Tepayak Leadership Initiative. TLI is a 5-month experience, which you can access from anywhere in the U.S. Visit tliprogram.org to learn more. Turn your Catholic faith into the driving force in your career through professional development and spiritual growth. Go to tliprogram.org now. Be part of the next generation of Tepayak leaders. tliprogram.org.
We're talking about what you're thinking about. You're listening to Trending with Timmery on Relevant Radio and the Relevant Radio app.
Have you ever considered in vitro fertilization, or do you know someone who's pondering it? Or maybe might be at risk of considering it and they haven't quite spoken up. Well, this is an episode you don't want to miss. We've been going through Dr. Susan Caldwell's own story about having gone through IVF, having conceived, and ended up having a handful of children via IVF. If you want to hear more about that, you can listen. But she's now helps women conceive children in the face of seemingly impossible hurdle of infertility. Before we unpack that and the incredible resources you and other NaPro doctors have to offer, I want to hear what the impact of IVF was on you and your husband and your marriage.
It was not good. And starting just with contraception, I just want to make sure everybody realizes that contraception is having sex with no children. And IVF is the opposite. It's having children with no sex, right? No intercourse, no, not the that one flesh union that is meant, right, to be fruitful. And it's really disconnecting those two most beautiful ways that couples come together and show the bonding and the babies, right? That should always go together. So already when we started out our marriage using contraception, it was natural to go to IVF. It's the thinking was it was just, oh, okay, well you do this and you do that, and of course I didn't think of it that way, but now looking back and it really, it was devastating. So when a woman, on a woman's side, women and men definitely deal with infertility much differently. So for me and from many of the patients I see, there's a lot of shame involved in it. So something's wrong with me. And whenever there's shame, there's a desire to hide, right? I don't want anybody to see how bad I am or how bad I feel. So there was a withdrawing. And often men, when there's a problem like infertility, instinctively God made them to want to fix things, right? To provide and protect. But when there's something this mysterious that is not able to be fixed, often a man, and my husband did as well, just kind of flees from that. Let me go get busy. Let me work harder. Let me kind of go do my thing because I don't know what to do with her feelings, right? So it's a perfect setup for a lot of isolation, and that's really what happened. I didn't know how to share my feelings. I was very emotionally immature, spiritually immature. I couldn't really handle the weight of those feelings, the fear, the shame, just all so really devastating. I recommend any couple going through this to find counseling. They need, no matter really who they are, they need counseling because this is a grief that happens every month. And if a marriage is going to survive this kind of emotional upheaval, then people are going to need help getting through that, and it can help couples grow closer and grow in virtue, but it can also do the opposite. It can drive them apart and isolate them into their own kind of worlds, and that's kind of what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, when Dr. Susan Caldwell here on Trending says it could help couples grow together, that's if they go through the journey of fertility together, not in vitro fertilization, but jointly work through that challenge. Yes. I mean, I can say firsthand, my husband and I struggled, and I ended up being diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome and Hashimoto's disease, and it made conceiving difficult. And, it would be easy to kind of, separate, to grow apart, kind of go into your own crisis mode in separate ways rather than grow closer together. But I want to unpack here the incredible work you do now. So you have 3 children, if I understand correctly, 3 living children from in vitro fertilization, correct?
Yes. One was a frozen embryo for 4 years. And 2 were conceived during the first cycle of IVF. Yes.
Now, of course, this is an important moment for us as Catholics because some people say, how dare you criticize people who are having a difficult time with infertility? Or why do you hate on children who are conceived via IVF? We do not hate children who are conceived via IVF. We understand the pain. But what we're saying is that the impact on the woman's body, the impact on the child, because often, although you did not abort children, many people do abort multiple children in the process because they don't want triplets. You originally were pregnant with triplets, and if I understand correctly, you shared that one of the triplets ended up dying around 7 weeks, correct?
Yes.
So it comes with a whole lot of baggage, the entire process. So why wouldn't you recommend, if you were to summarize, why you wouldn't tell anyone to go through with IVF, even though you yourself did it to conceive children? Tell us what that reason is.
Yeah. Well, because infertility is merely a symptom of an underlying disease. And so when we go for the quick fix, the Band-Aid approach, we totally dismiss the woman's health. And so it is not a cure. So what NaPro provides is we find the underlying cause, like you just mentioned. You had 2 good reasons, right? So IVF would not have treated your conditions. So I see women who conceive with IVF and they come to me and they're sick. Or they have miscarriages, recurrent miscarriages, or because her own health has not been addressed. She's really dismissed and abandoned in favor of creating a child. And, not to mention the IVF is a highly abortive procedure. Mm-hmm. And that is horrible to think about. And it makes people sick, and it's not, it's just a really bad solution to the problem of infertility.
I'll never forget a comment you made in the first article I read of yours some years ago, sharing your testimony about the moment where you're laying there on the table, you're going through finally with IVF. I think the embryos are being injected into your body. Those are the small, tiny babies. And you said, we looked at each other. That's you and your husband. We had the palpable sense that this whole process felt completely unlike the warm, united, and loving way children are usually conceived. And you said it felt unnatural, sterile, and strange, but there was no turning back. Tell me, how did this lead you into working with NaPro technology, and how is NaPro technology a resource and truly life-saving for marriages and children today?
Yes. Well, I remember when I was kind of coming back to my faith, realizing kind of following where we kind of everybody goes when we're looking for happiness outside of.
Oh, I think we lost her connection here for just a moment. We're going to get her reconnected to us. But again, that is Dr. Susan Caldwell sharing her journey of having gone through in vitro fertilization, but how now she would never recommend it to anyone. And she works to help women conceive children in the face of seemingly impossible hurdles of fertility. And I have to just say what she said a moment ago. She said, infertility is a symptom of an underlying health condition. I can't emphasize this heavily enough from my own journey of friends and family members. I've grown up around in vitro fertilization, NaPro technology my entire life, helping women to conceive children, to treat physical pain related to their menstrual cycles, to come off of birth control, and to really be healed. And I have to say, when I talk about healing, I'm not just talking about healing of the body, healing of fertility, but healing of the soul, as Dr. Caldwell was touching on. She talked about how she was Catholic. And she received, like so many of us, that little intro NFP class when you get married and you're doing your marriage prep in the Catholic Church. But she had poor catechesis, like so many have had. She had people mention NFP, but she kind of thought, okay, that's cute, but I'm going to be in control. I'm going to go with what the world's teaching us for natural family planning. But how her journey back into the church now is what led her to understand, you know what, my decision with IVF wasn't the best for my marriage, for my family, and there are other ways. And so Dr. Susan Caldwell, NaPro doctor, is back with us now to explain more of why she loves NaPro technology and how it's so helpful.
Yes, yes. So I realized that there's natural family planning is not just cute, right? So it gives a woman, when she understands the biomarkers of her fertility, they're also the same data that helps her know that she's healthy. So it's not just this isolated system in her body. It is something that's interconnected with her entire being and her health, mental health, her spiritual health, her physical health. It's all connected. So when a woman is taught to chart, she is the control is now, like, she understands. She can understand her body. She can make decisions about her body. She doesn't just submit her body to a pill or to a bunch of medicine and injections. And no, she can take this information to a doctor who understands, like a NaPro doctor, and say, hey, this is what my body is telling me. Can you show me, and can we work on a solution, a cure, so that whether she wants to avoid pregnancy, achieve pregnancy, or just maintain her health, she can do so with the help of, the team, the teacher, the Creighton practitioner, and the NaPro doctor, and their solutions are there, and health is there. And then when a woman becomes healthy, and a couple becomes healthy, they should be able to conceive naturally, and it's so beautiful to see that happen.
That's so true. That's Dr. Susan Caldwell here on Trending with Timmerie. There's so many questions I have for you. You're going to have to join us again soon because we can't touch on all of them, but I at least want to touch on this. For someone who has endometriosis, like yourself and like many others that we know of, even popular celebrities, I can think of the dancer Julianne Hough from Dancing with the Stars and America's Got Talent judge. What would be a NaPro approach to treating endometriosis, and how possible is it to still have a child naturally?
Oh, it's very possible. It's very possible. So there are many approaches to endometriosis treatment. There are functional medicine approaches that really work on diet and supplements and things like that. I know that is out there, but that's not the NaPro approach. The NaPro approach, and it's beautiful. It can be a beautiful approach. I just want to make sure I mention it. But a NaPro surgeon will take the pelvis of a woman who's suffering with endometriosis and restore it. Right, remove by excision those lesions all over the pelvis that are keeping that woman from having a healthy environment for conception and pregnancy. So it's a totally restorative process, and with that treatment, not only can she achieve pregnancy with her husband, but she can be free of cramps and the painful intercourse and the difficulty with bleeding and all the things that go along with that. So and the approach that the NaPro surgeon provides is so much different than a traditionally trained OBGYN. So it's essential to find an endometriosis specialist for excision surgery if that's the case.
I can tell you we have one here in Southern California in San Diego that I highly recommend. Are you a NaPro surgeon as well,
No.
Dr. Caldwell? Okay,
No,
so you recommend
that would be
out
great.
that part.
Yes, I do.
We're going to be posting links now on social media for you to get access to a NaPro doctor, where you can find them, their locations, fertility care practitioners. There are so many resources, sometimes even if you have to travel a little ways, but you might be surprised by the number of NaPro doctors who are out there ready to open their arms to you in your journey and help you, just like Dr. Caldwell, in healing the underlying health conditions that are impacting your ability, or perhaps your friend's ability, to conceive. I want to encourage you to share this episode of Trending with loved ones who might be going through the same journey. And Dr. Susan Caldwell will be back here soon on Trending. We'll post links on social media as well to her practice in New Orleans. I'll be right back.
Bridging your Catholic faith with your everyday life. You're listening to Trending with Timmery on Relevant Radio and the Relevant Radio app.
Father Rocky is here with us on Trending with Timmery today, and we are so excited to invite you to our 54-day Rosary Novena. Now, if you're like me, I am not necessarily a big fan of praying a long novena that includes a whole rosary a day because it's work. And so we're going to talk about why this is an incredible opportunity and why we need to do this for our church and the nation. Father Rocky, our Executive Director of Relevant Radio, is here with us to unpack why you decided to pray this novena at this point in the year.
Well, I'm not a big fan of long novenas either because I didn't think I could do. The first time I ever got the idea to do a 54-day rosary novena was back in May of 2010. I woke up on the morning of May 4th with this very, very clear idea in my head. I have to do a super duper version of the 54-day rosary novena. And then I said to myself, wait a second, you've never even done a 9-day novena. There's no way you're going to be able to do a 54-day rosary novena. You no sooner make a resolution than you break it. And I said, yeah, but I got to do this. So I thought the only way I'm going to be able to do this is I got to get a bunch of other people involved to keep myself honest. So I reached out to about 15, 20 friends. I said, we need to pray this 54-day rosary novena so we can buy our station in Chicago so the network can work because that's what's going on. And I'll send a little note every day and we'll all do this together. And so that's what it is. So it's 3 novenas, 9 plus 9 plus 9 is 27, asking for your intention, followed by 3 novenas, 9 plus 9 plus 9 is 27, and 27 is 54, thanking God for hearing your petitions. And there's a lot of concern out there if you know what's going on in the country. There's a lot of unrest. There's violence. There's uncertainty. There had been a huge spike in unemployment because of COVID, but the good news we got today is unemployment is back down to 8.4%. There's many people working today in America as there were in 2015. So it's going in the right trend. It really is bouncing right back. It's amazing to see this. And we've been praying on the radio that the unemployment rate goes back down to 3.5% by the end of the year because that solves a lot of problems for a lot of people. If people are out of work, they're anxious, they're angry, they're uptight, problems are going to happen. I mean, you just can see it in any country when you've got a lot of high unemployment, then you get all sorts of problems and violence and unrest. So we're praying for that. So the theme is to pray for the needs of the church and the nation. We put the church first because as the church goes, so goes society. And, we've had a number of chapters in the history of the church of great saints in the past century and in recent times, but also some pretty very sad scandals, right? And this discourages people and gives people an excuse to say, well, couldn't have been founded by God because look at how those people are behaving, right? So we have to pray that everybody really seek to be noble and sincere and honest and authentic and truly Catholic and truly Christian. So that's why we're praying for the needs of the church. We can pray for the needs of the nation. So I'm going to invite everyone to join us every night for the Family Rosary Across America, which is coming up in a few minutes at 7 p.m. We do it live Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends we take all of the emails that we had through the week, and we do that at 7 p.m.
That's 7 p.m. Eastern, so that would
No, that's 7 p.m.
for
Central
us
Time.
Here. Or sorry,
7 p.m.
Central Time. Yes, exactly. So if you are in the Midwest there, 7 p.m. is your time. But otherwise for us here in California, that's 5 p.m. Pacific Time.
What are people doing in California at 5 p.m.? Are they leaving work? Are they having dinner? They're driving home. Yeah,
yes.
That's what I would think.
And
what time
traffic.
do people usually have dinner? What time do people usually have dinner?
Always after 6, more so moving towards 7 usually.
Yeah, that's late. There's one kid call up from the Family Rosary Across America the other night, 8:20 p.m., New York, 6 years old. I said, well, you're up awfully late. Yeah, but I didn't want to miss the Family Rosary Across America. Isn't that great? And the family gathers in the living room. So the other thing that's great here, Tim Ray, I'm really looking forward to do this. If you sign up at relevantradio.com or on our app, then every day for 54 days, you're going to get a 1-minute lesson on each of the 54, 55 titles in the Litany of Our Lady, also known as the Litany of Loretto. So there's very interesting titles in this litany. Some begin with the word holy. Some begin with the word mother. There's 10 that begin with the name virgin. There's probably 12 or 13 that begin with the name queen. And then there's a whole section of sort of mystical titles of Our Lady. Morning Star, or House of Gold, or Ark of the Covenant. What do those mean? Where do they come from? Why do we refer to Our Lady as that? So I'm going to pack that for you. And you can get that for free every day. It comes right to your email on your phone or on your laptop or on your Kindle or on your tablet, whatever you want. You can read it or you can listen to it. You can share it with your friends. And I've written about 9 of them. I still have, 45 to go. And then when I was on Relevant Radio in Espanol this morning, I opened my big mouth and said, hey, let's do this in Spanish too. So we're going to translate them all in Spanish. You're going to record them in Spanish, and you can get them on the English website or Spanish website, the English app or the Spanish app, the English Facebook or the Spanish Facebook. So that's what we're doing.
That's Father Rocky here on Trending with Tim Ray. He's our executive director of Relevant Radio. And Father Rocky, one of the things that really stands out to me is that we have these 1-minute long teaching minutes that you're offering, which really unpack a lot. And I love that you're just spending a whole minute going through each of the titles of the litany in by Our Lady of Loretto, as many people know. Can you share with us a little bit about the Litany of Loretto? Is this associated with the House of Loretto as well?
Oh, sure. Okay, so the Holy House of Loretto, there's a little town in Italy on the Adriatic coast, about 3 hours away from Rome, and if you rent a car, and you get really neat cars that you rent in Italy, like an Alfa Romeo, you drive across the country on the Autostrada, and it goes from bridge to tunnel to mountain to valley, and you get to the Adriatic coast. And there's a little town there up on the hill, and you can see the Adriatic Sea in the distance. And there is a shrine to Our Lady called the Shrine of Our Lady of Loretto. And inside the church, there's a white marble monument, and inside that monument, there is the house of Our Lady from Nazareth. Now you're thinking, wait a second, how can the house of Nazareth be in Italy? Well, it was brought there during the Crusades in the 13th century to protect it from demolition. And one of the traditions is the angels brought it there. Now, some people say, well, no, I think it was the Angeli Moving Company. Be that as it may, to me, there's no way to explain it except the angels had to have a hand in it. And that's been a major shrine in Italy for the last 500, 600 years. Many great saints have been there. Right? St. Teresa of Lisieux went there. St. Pius X went there. St. John Bosco went there. Mother Teresa of Calcutta, St. Teresa of Calcutta went there. St. Josemaria went there. John Paul II went there. And I've been there a number of times. And around that shrine rose this tradition of a litany. Now, there's all sorts of litanies in the church. It's a list of titles or honors. So there's a litany of the saints. That goes back to the very beginning of the church. We always pray that during baptism or during the Easter Vigil or during an ordination to the priesthood or during a confirmation. There's also a litany of the Sacred Heart. Then there's a litany of Our Lady known as the Litany of Loretto. 30 years ago, there were only 50 titles, and then John Paul II added 2 more, and Pope Francis added 3 more, and I'm going to explain each one of them to you every day if you sign up right now at relevantradio.com or the Relevant Radio app, and you'll get it in your email box every day for free.
Well, now's your time to sign up for a 54-day Rosary Novena. You can pray it with us here on Relevant Radio at 7 p.m. Central, or you can pray your Rosary and follow along as Father sends you those free emails with the teaching minute about the various titles of Our Lady. Thanks for being here with us. You guys have a great 3-day weekend. We'll be back next week here on Trending with Tim Ray.